Various agitations have happened across the country over the years on language. Recently, Kannada activists broke signboards to enforce Kannada in Bengaluru. Why is language such a touchy subject? Our country has states separated on language. So, language is not just communication, it is also political. Why have we made language political? Are languages like religion a soft target to create enemies and galvanize political support? Or is there really a threat to the languages in the cities, which are multicultural, multilingual by nature? What is the language of a city? Why do you learn English without prompting, but riots are needed for you to learn Kannada? Bengaluru is the most cosmopolitan city in India. By some accounts, there are more than 110 languages that are spoken here. But it is the only major city in South also where the use of Hindi has doubled from 3 to 6% in the last 2 decades, for which the census is available. Inherently, more multilingual than other cities in the country, Bengaluru is. If you take some of the cities in Gujarat, like Ahmedabad, for example, for which you see a lot of money is being pumped to make it develop, Bengaluru produces more output with far less investment. Why? This is again linked to the diversity. Bengaluru is only 44% Kannada mother tongue, while probably Ahmedabad is 75% and Gandhinagar is 94% Gujarati. Let's try and understand more about why this happens and why there are riots and how this can go forward. How can cities continue to be this thriving, prosperous places that it is, and yet not lose the local touch and the flavor that has come across over the many years? What is the nature of Bengaluru itself? We need to understand. Let's talk to Udaya Kumar, who has studied inscription stones in Bengaluru and has traced the history of languages in the city, not just in the recent past of 2 decades, 3 decades independence. It is about 1,000 years ago. What was Bengaluru like? What did they speak and how did it come about and how it is changing now in the recent past? And you should also watch his OoruLabs podcast with him on the inscription stones from season 1, which I will link to as well in the description. You have been studying these inscription stones for quite a while, and it has history beyond what we contemporarily know. Most of us seem to relate to the past 2 decades, 3 decades, or up to independence. We go and say this is what we think the language has been. And you have had access to these inscription stones from what, 700 CE and periods like that, time periods that are very far back in the past. Was Bengaluru only about Kannada, and what do you think it can tell us?
Firstly, the question that you posed is about Bengaluru. Okay, and the answer I'm going to be giving today, all the conversations we'll be having around this centered around Bengaluru. Let's be very clear that each city, each region in each state is different. Okay, so whatever I'm going to be telling you is not necessarily applicable for Karnataka as a whole, nor is it applicable, say, for Mangalore or Hubli or Belgaum. So each of them have their own peculiarities and they vary. Okay. General tendency is not to see the problem that way. People end up thinking that, Karnataka is representative of Bangalore and Bangalore is representative of Karnataka. That's correct. Absolutely untrue. Okay, one. And two, what you said is also absolutely right. Public memory is very short. We can go back like maybe 2-3 generations. What we have heard from our grandfathers and our mothers and fathers essentially is what we think of as the history of a place. That's not true at all. That's only what people know, have personally experienced. So if you ask that question, what are the languages that have been spoken in Bengaluru, then we have to go beyond these personal experiences and anecdotal references and look at really solid sources to infer what languages have been in use in this city here, in this region here. Okay, and the sources for studying that are basically writings. You don't have oral recordings from the past, so you have to look at writings and figure out what is it that people spoke or could have used. Then what you do is, what are the sources we have? Primarily 2 sources. One is writings on stone, which is what are called as inscriptions, and the second are literature, manuscripts and stories. So things like that. The first one has been better studied than manuscripts because manuscripts are very mobile. And it's very hard to kind of infer and say this was written here in Bengaluru. You may have found a palm leaf manuscript, somewhere else, but that may not be the place of origin as well. Okay, so inscriptions have been very well studied, and they actually dot the landscape. So within the city of Bengaluru, we have about 175 stone inscriptions from the past, going back almost about 1300 years. Okay, so these are samples of language used in this region for the last 1300 years, you can say. Okay, they represent what people of this place, have used. So if you look at that, for about 1,000 years, so approximately about 950 onwards, 950 AD onwards, three languages seem to have been used here, at least in its written form. Okay, there's Tamil, there's Kannada, and there is Telugu. Okay, about Telugu. So about 30% of all of the writing that we find is Tamil, and about 5 to 10% is Telugu, and the rest is all Kannada. Okay. And they are widespread. So depending, it doesn't matter whether you're in Yalanka or Kengeri or Hoskote or Magadi, essentially you find the three languages being used across the entire region. So it's not like general perception is the cantonment region is Tamil and some the Marthali region is Telugu, some other regions are Kannada, etc., etc. That's not what the story is as we see it in inscriptions. And they span the entire period, from almost about 1000 AD to about 1600 AD, where we have a profusion of inscriptions in the region. We find Kannada obviously continued to be used quite a lot, as well as there's about a third of those are in Tamil and a little in Telugu as well. So historically, this city has been for 1,000 years at least multilingual. So it's not monolingual like what we kind of think of it to be. We would like some people would like it to be today. Three languages have been continually spoken here. It's not spontaneous. It's not sporadic. Continually spoken here for 1,000 years. And subsequently, we have also had languages like Marathi and Urdu or Persian. All of these also, making their presence felt here in the form of writings in different places as well. So the fabric of the city being multilingual is really stretches back at least 1,000 years, for which we have good data.
Bangalore is situated in the middle of the peninsula, and it was easier for that migration to happen. And it is situated in a place where, in the olden days, whoever could migrate were from around the region. It has been seen that in the last few decades, because of all of the improvements in the economy and the travel and people being able to move, increasing migration from further away has been seen, right? There are people from the Hindi belt, there are people from the Northeast and elsewhere who are also migrating into the city for opportunities. This usually happens to most cities because cities are basically labor markets at the end of the day, and it brings people in, it helps you create new stuff. There seems to be a feeling that every time a new crop of people come, there is less appreciation of what is considered local. Is the language itself, can it ever be under threat? Is it going to go away some like Latin or Sanskrit and say nobody is going to use this anymore? Do you think that is a valid concern?
So just one point of clarification on the point about migration before I jump into answering that. Okay, languages are not necessarily in use because of just migration. Languages essentially are natural things, just like trees or rivers or terrain or whatever. So the understanding that a language and a state map, in a one-to-one correspondence is actually an artificial imagination. It's just like a bird, if it lives across states. A state boundary, doesn't mean that a bird is not going to cross the boundary. Right. So exactly like that, languages also spread, kind of diffuse across the regions geographically. Just for administrative purposes, we put a line there and said this is Karnataka and that is Kannada. Tamil Nadu is Tamil and Telangana is Telugu or something like that. So there is even otherwise a natural dissemination and of languages, not just migration being one cause for that. That's also a part of that, obviously. But even otherwise, generally they tend to kind of diffuse into each other, and they kind of change so much. Even the same language that we think of as Kannada is varies enormously across regions and all. Yeah. Okay. So that's just that. And the second point about threat to Kannada because of migration. Okay. Again, here there's two ways to look at this. One is anecdotal and the emotion and all of that. And, think of it as, do we seem to be having a problem, which a lot of people at these days seem to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay. The other way is really to look at numbers and data and what really is happening on the ground and study it in a systematic methodological way, and then see what really is the issue. Is there a problem, or kind of is it imagined, or is there obviously it's not imagined. If people are feeling that it's threatened, there must be some reason for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we try to understand what could be the reason for doing that. Okay. So if you want to understand that, then you obviously need to know what are the languages that are now entering into Bangalore. Who are the people bringing these languages here, and how big or how much is it, and how is it kind of being used or absorbed by the people who already live here. So three things, what are the existing languages, what are the languages that are coming into the city, and what is happening to those languages that are coming in recent times. So if you think about it like this, the data source that we have really is the census data. Again, the latest data we have available for this is really the 2011 census data.
Correct.
Okay, which very nicely tells us, okay, there are two things. Again, migration from within, the region, from close proximity, and the other is migration from far away or remote places. Right? That's the way to think about it. So if you want to think about Karnataka, which is as largely a kind of a Kannada-aware population, assuming that's factually true, which is not true anyways, migration from within Karnataka into Bangalore, we assume is not bringing new languages. It's because these people are already speaking Kannada, so they continue to speak Kannada here. Okay. Now, that's a significant amount of popular number, which is about 18% of population coming in, adding into Bangalore every year, as on 2011, were people coming in from Kannada, right? So in that way, they were actually only kind of improving the Kannada numbers, Kannada-aware numbers. The second part of the story is, people who are coming in from, other states. So there's the largest migrant population into Bangalore is really coming from Tamil Nadu, number one. Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, as there.
The top three is still from the South Indian states.
Yes, actually, the neighboring states, which is very meaningful and logical as well, right? You wouldn't want to run away to a faraway place. You want to go to a place which is next door or a neighbor to you. Right. So the largest population of coming into Bangalore are from Tamil Nadu, Telangana / Andhra Pradesh, and then Kerala. So if I think about it like this, these people are not again kind of bringing in a new language into the region. Right. They're already speaking Tamil, and the people who are speaking Tamil here already exist there, and then they're only adding to a small bit to that number there. Okay. So in terms of sheer numbers, let me kind of give you some data there, which the census says of 100% of the Bengaluru population, and there's some small assumptions here. Okay, for 70%, 70 odd percent can speak Kannada, no matter what they claim to be their mother tongues as. So it could be Kannadigas, it could be Tamilians, it could be Telugu, it could be Hindi origin people, Malayalis, or anyone else. Total population of the city, about 71% can speak Kannada. About 28% of this city already speaks Telugu, and 26% already speaks Tamil. So about, let's say, a fair amount of the population already speaks Kannada. A quarter of the population can speak Telugu or Tamil, which I would say are the native languages of this city. Oh, by the way, all of these are multilingual. So when I say 70% of the population can speak Kannada, they can also, a portion of that can speak Tamil and Telugu and Hindi and all of that. 25% of the population is Hindi aware. And the migration from the Hindi regions essentially is what probably would cause Hindi numbers to rise, is really not so significant. Are they modifying the language structure of this place in any ways? I really don't see any kind of possibility at all. It will be it's taken it's taken an enormous amount of effort and time to reach even Kannada to 70% here, which supposedly is a native language. Okay, so in the next many hundred years, I don't see Hindi going to 70% or displacing any one of these languages. Okay, however, this is the situation as we see today. But the English-aware population in this city is 50%. Okay, so if someone were to say the English numbers are growing rapidly, that seems to agree with the data. Okay, and it's a very natural phenomenon because of what you said as well. Today, the city's economy is largely not so local. In fact, 85% of the Karnataka's GDP is coming from Bangalore, and a large portion of the GDP of Bangalore itself is of foreign origin, meaning in terms of services delivered to other countries.
The Hindi thing, right? You said something, most of it is anecdotal right now. There have been a lot of fights. I've been seeing a lot of videos where people who speak Hindi are unwilling to or unable get into fights on Kannada. And those are the videos that surface.
Right.
And every time you encounter somebody not speaking your language or get into some kind of a tussle, you start bringing that up. When you surface such videos of conflict, and when languages from the north are predominantly visible right now in the economic sphere, you seem to find that an easy target. Is it? While the language we have proven cannot be under threat from the recent migration, there definitely seems to be some amount of angst about disrespect for the local language. Let's jump into the opinion space now. You and I can start looking at opinions of what we think, based on what we have seen, can be possibilities of fixing these things. Name boards has been the most visible fight that has happened. You and I have seen that. This name board doesn't have Kannada. There's a lot of English. And this is one way I can impose that this is a Kannada speaking city. If your name boards are in other languages and you are conveniently getting by without having to speak Kannada, you will not pay respect. So there is this seeking of attention to Kannada, using name boards as a proxy. Is that a good enough option? Is that, well, we could always say that is not enough, but is that a good start to say that the name boards need to be in Kannada and then, all Kannada problems are solved?
No, obviously not. So, I don't know what you said about anecdotal is absolutely true. It doesn't mean that just because it's anecdotal, it cannot be true. Right? All of us have experienced this in many ways, and there's no running away from that fact. Okay? Despite the data, despite the numbers and reality and all that, we do experience this. Okay? A lot of it, as you can see, is very clearly politically inspired and motivated. Okay, it has little to do with the ground realities in that sense at all. And political reasons are also there. Essentially, for a long time now, so if I go back to what I said just now, which are the most three used languages in this city? Can we drive our policy to make it much more multilingual in that sense? Instead of making this confrontational thing, is it possible to say, I want to have a 3-language policy? Yes, but can I make those 3 languages the most useful ones here? So if I'm seeing a huge migrant population coming into Bangalore, why am I learning a language which is pretty useless in this context here? Okay, so can I make the same 3 languages and say, you learn English, Hindi, and Tamil, or Telugu, or Marathi, or whatever else that you want, which is one of the useful languages in this city, in this region. Okay, do we need to go and learn Hindi? Number one. Okay, in that sense. And if you see the enormous amounts of spend that the central government's been spending on Hindi promotion here, what purpose? A small number of migrants who come here who will refuse to learn every other language but only continue to speak in Hindi. So you're kind of building an entire infrastructure to suit them and aid them. Obviously going to cause a lot of angst. How would it be if the same central government spent the money in promoting one of the local languages and makes it so much more useful for the migrants and for the locals as well? Right. So any public sector organization, central government organization you go into, they have Hindi days, Hindi word for the day, Hindi divas, Hindi that, Hindi this and all that, which I don't think people of Bangalore love languages, which is what we've seen historically, right?
Yeah.
What they don't like is this imposition of a certain language, number one. And the fact is also that we have had massive number of people coming in here, not now but for a long time, from North India as well. The recent development of imposition of Hindi, one, and a few people, I would say, kind of are taking advantage of that. Most of us, we know that the people who come up from north, who are our friends and colleagues, are absolutely not the types who are thrusting Hindi personally down on anybody. Right? In fact, a lot of my friends and colleagues and a lot of these people are actually very, I would say, keen to learn the language and mingle with the local people and fit in basically. Right? There may be a few people here and there, the rotten ones, which essentially abuse the system and then kind of do that. And so essentially the political response to that is call it out and say, look, there is the North Indian who's spoiling our city, who's the threat to our language and all of that. So the multilingual nature of Bangalore and, basically Karnataka itself is very well reflected in the literary world. Okay. So Karnataka takes pride as the state with the highest number of Jnanapita awards in India. Actually, while that's great, there's actually something more interesting in that a lot of these awardees were not really speaking Kannada at home, or did not study even Kannada in the schools. And I'll give you a few examples of that as well. So if you take Girish Karnad, Rhodes Scholar, no less than that. He studied in Marathi medium. He spoke Kannada at home. He spoke Konkani at home. And then he wrote in Kannada. He also wrote in English. He wrote in Kannada as well. And if you take the other two, say Masti Venkatesh Iyengar. Masti Venkatesh Iyengar, they say, is Masti Kannada Asti. So it's like Kannada's wealth is Masti. He didn't speak, he spoke Tamil at home. And if I'm right, his early days of education were actually Sanskrit in a Vedic Pathshala. So, this goes on and on. You can say Guru and, Masti and all of them as well. So the nature of the people who really constitute Bangalore or the city or Karnataka itself are multilingual in nature. It's one of those places where language is not an issue. In fact, we leverage the diversity and multilingual nature to make our own place so much more better for everybody. And we thrive because of that. The whole world is coming to Bangalore basically because the ease at which you can fit in and you become one of the people.
That's very interesting because I wanted to bring this. Why do we learn English, right? You and I have talked about this earlier. We learn English because there are opportunities in communication to the outside world, and it brings us more wealth and prosperity, and we are able to communicate. What then is the choice that people make? They will make choices on, in the long run, what brings them any advantage of knowing that language. If you go into a place and you're a shopkeeper and you suddenly go into a place and you need to communicate with your customers, you're going to learn that language so you can make the sale, right? It's very utilitarian in nature, the choices you make. Does Hindi give me more opportunities than a Kannada or a Tamil or a Telugu? Maybe not. If I am dealing a lot with Hindi in the heartland and I keep going to Delhi and I make my business there, I would possibly learn Hindi or whatever it is. And I would do that anyway, right? So this language, there are two aspects of language. One is the very utilitarian nature of how you learn the language and why you learn the language. And then there is this whole political thing of the reorganization of India of the states in India has been along linguistic lines. So you can look at language as a political tool that is being used to keep the flock together and communicate our imagined realities of, oh, this is the state, and hence if you want the state to be like this, you have to have this language. And that is not, and we always compare with places like Korea and Japan and Germany. These are all monolingual states. They cannot even be compared with a country like India, right? I mean, I see our neighboring country, Pakistan, having this problem. There's Sindhi, there's Pashtun, there's Balo, there's Punjabi, and yet they try to glue together with Urdu, and it is not necessarily, it diminishes. The Hindi belt has diminished For example, the Braj Bhasha, the Bhojpuri, the Awadhi, the Maithili, and so many languages are being diminished by imposition of a language. If there were utilitarian reasons, I think we should just allow that, right? I mean, isn't that one way of looking at it?
Absolutely right. We seem to have forgotten that we are an extraordinarily diverse country. In every ways you can think of, not just language. Very diverse in terms of religion, in terms of language, in terms of cultural practices, food practices, everything you can think of. So, whenever you try to come up with this one solution fits all model in a diverse environment like that, you're obviously going to have chaos, and you're going to have a lot of friction and revolt there. And this has happened not just in India. It's happened across the world. We have seen this kind of situations in Sri Lanka as well. Where imposition of a certain language or imposition of a certain religion has caused issues and all of that. India's strength is our diversity. And we should leverage that, and we should use it. And we're a group of people who are used to it. It's not that we are people who are suddenly finding all this language issue and all other issues a problem to handle with. We are not. We are actually born into this environment, and we flourish and thrive in this environment. For example, and I often take this example here in Bangalore. A lot of families speak 3-4 languages at home.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, you speak one language with your aunts, you speak another language with your friends, you speak another language with your parents, or maybe even mother and father, and different languages, and so on and so forth. So for us, this is not really a big deal for us. And I'm fairly certain this is not the case in anywhere in the country, really, so much. Somebody has kind of stamped that identity and said the Bengali means Bengal. Punjabi means, if you're from Punjab, you speak Punjabi and nothing else. Not true at all. And we don't have to kind of fit ourselves into this model. We can use multiple languages for multiple purposes. I think it can be easy for us. Like you said, for work, for a livelihood, English works good. For watching movies, you want to watch, you pick up a movie in some language, that's fine. You speak a language with your friends, that's fine too. And that's really the model that should work. And today, especially with all the abundance of technology that we have, how long does it take to to build a farm in multiple languages, a government farm?
Yeah.
Okay. How long does it take for somebody to kind of translate something? Not much. Today every movie that's streamed on OTT platforms is coming in a dozen languages. You can watch it in any language that you want. Instantaneous, there's OCR and translation that's happening, across the thing. It's only going to get better. So the dependence on a certain language to function in a region is going to go down and down. And this belief that it has to be a one language or no other language is not practical, nor is going to be possible for it to play out. I don't think it's going to survive at all. It may make a lot of noise. It may disrupt life a little bit. But for most of us, constructive life means multiple languages.
So so with all these translation tools and AI and other things coming up, where one language doesn't matter and you can always get a translation and all that. Going forward, it will completely be utilitarian choices. There will be official languages because that's already anyway a part of it. Bengaluru being the capital of this state and having Kannada is going to have to converse in Kannada, and people will learn or not learn. Now, I have personally seen people telling me that even if they do make an effort, there isn't a consolidated way of learning these things. Of course, YouTube is there, quite a bit of effort. I think there can be better efforts by Kannada Development Authority and others to say, how do we make available learning of spoken Kannada easier for people? Now, you can fight for the signboards. That's the easy thing. That's the easy political thing. People are not going to read first. They're going to speak first. And speaking lets them want to read more and understand more. We are not making spoken Kannada available nicely in a structured way. People always say, oh, there are classes here, there are classes there, there's YouTube, everything is available. Yes, it is. But when I want to get someone to read it, understand it, and then practice it, right? That's one of the things. If you don't practice it, your vocabulary keeps dwindling. My vocabulary is up and down based on how much I talk it. And how much I converse, the ability to converse and the space that need to be conversed. Multiple touch points there. Where do you see solutions coming from in helping people? Let's say somebody just wants to learn the language of Kannada. How do we make it easy for them and not difficult for them to learn the language?
So just one point. Having said all that, so why should anyone learn a language?
Correct.
A local language, right?
Good
so that's
question.
the point. Yeah, a lot of people are doing today. They live in an environment which is very monolingual or monolithic. So I can live in for example, a Purva Heights or some other place like that, where the whole environment, top to bottom, is essentially the same.
Oh,
Then
ghettoisation.
I can make do with Hindi there, or I can make do with Bengali there, whatever, and then live there, right? So and then go to work and I manage with English and come back home, and then I continue with my whatever other language. Why should you learn Kannada or any of these languages here? Now, it's not for basic survival. That's disgusting. We don't want to live just a bare life there. Okay, you want to learn the richness. You want to enjoy the richness of this place. You want to mingle with the people. You want to learn, their the ways of living here. You want to integrate here, and you find out how do people think. What do they eat? What do they cook? What do they enjoy? What's music for them? What can I leverage in this place and enhance my own life? Or do I live in this ghetto here and then be satisfied with that? There are many people who do that as well. So the reason for anyone to promoting a language should be to make it much more fun for anyone to live in that place. Let's say, for example, I'm a person living in, say, Whitefield. Okay. And then, my work and, home are essentially around there, and that's where I'm centered around. So, and this is real life as well. So when somebody says, oh, Malaysia, it's so far away. If you kind of box out an entire city like this, let's take the example of Malaysia itself. Okay. What's so great about Malaysia? You need to come to Malaysia. Obviously, you need to learn, one of these languages and learn about the place. Right. So what's great about Malaysia? There's this amazing places there. If you haven't been to 6 Cross, 8 Cross, all those brilliant places for shopping, Sampige Road and all of that. And then, you have the greatest of the greats in the city have lived. In every one of those 18 or 19 crosses, you can name an individual who's helped build the city and who we boast of. There's C.V. Raman there. There are so many of the literary personalities there, film personalities, dance personalities, and all of that. There are 2 or 3 religious matas there.
Yeah.
There's the Chitrapur Saraswat Brahman thing. There is there's Shiva Vaishnava Mata there, and all of that as well. There's beautiful temples there. There's thriving clubs and thing happening there. So you look out on what you're missing here. You're missing on a lot because you kind of cut off a language and said, I'm not going to mingle with the crowds there.
How do you make it easy for people to mingle?
How do you make
with
it easy
local?
for people to do that? Very, very, there's simple steps and there's not mind-boggling steps like that, really. So, there are many countries that have kind of rigid norms on entry. If you want to go study in the US or somewhere, then you have to take the test of English language, English as a foreign language. If you're going to go into France or you're going to go to Germany or many of these places, they make it mandatory to learn the language. We don't have to do something as ridiculous as that.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but fundamentally, we can make it a little more fun. Where are the largest migrant populations coming in? Where are the people migrating into? They're migrating into the corporate settings today. And there's the blue collar and the white collar workforces thing. The blue collar workforce obviously kind of has to mingle with the people. So very quickly, within a few months, they're actually learning the languages.
Yeah.
Right. So it could be the security man, it could be a vegetable seller, it could be the milkman or any one of these people, no matter whether they come from Jharkhand or Chandigarh or wherever, they very quickly, within no time, they're learning languages and fitting in because it's required for them, it's utilitarian. The corporate setting, the white collar workforce can live without the language, and that's where the kind of some of the anxiety is also being triggered from. I think it's very simple, and we can easily say, look, Bangalore has these languages here, and within 6 months, we would love you all to start learning these languages. And in the corporate world, everything is appraisal based. I don't know if maybe HR manager will have different this one as well. But I would say, look, we have come here to Bangalore for ABC reasons to start our operations, and we need to integrate and fit into this place. We can't box ourselves into ghettos in the corporate offices and in the homes here. So beyond this family day celebrations, blah blah blah, all of that, let's kind of put our invest in this a little bit more and make conversational Kannada an integral part of our activities. Okay, we will fund this. We will also mandate that a certain percentage of the population has to be undergoing these courses, and the guys who go through this, we sponsor them film tickets, or God knows, come up the incentivization, whichever ways it wants. And if that's where we start, anyone who comes into a city is coming up with an open mind. Okay, they're not unwilling to learn the language. So if you facilitate it by making education a part of their job culture itself, I think it's going to make some impact and some dent there. And this is not the usual kind of stuff that's there. That's the tick mark item saying, yeah, I have a Kannada trainer coming on Fridays. You guys get 1 hour off to attend the class. Anyone, if you are interested. That's not the way to make it happen. I think you need a stronger thing. Maybe the boss of the organization himself, signs up for this and opens his speeches with the people in that language and all of that. Some amount of, I think, rigor is maybe a legal intervention is also required to make that happen. For example, in the IAS cadre, it's mandatory.
Yeah,
you can't become an IAS officer and get posted from Haryana into the Karnataka cadre without and say I don't know Kannada. One of the first things they've done is they put through Kannada courses and they have to learn it. It's a job requirement, but they're not writing in Kannada. They're not reading in Kannada, whatever. It's mandated for the jobs. Similarly here, while we don't have to do something as dramatic as that, we can definitely make it much more entertaining and fun. Many ways of making it happen. Today, the corporate world seems to disown all of these things and say, look, we are here in the business of making money and we'll do nothing else. I think we have to broaden our horizons a little bit more. A richer workforce, a more diverse workforce, a multilingual workforce is good for corporates, good for the city, good for everybody.
A workforce that has a life of understanding the local environment beyond just their home and office within that 5-kilometer radius. Let's say they come in and they want to integrate, they want to learn more about inscription stones or some such thing. They want to go look at monuments, the history of the place and things like that. They don't have an opportunity or avenue. They want to learn the language. They don't have a structured program or something that even says there are Friday Kannada classes. If you want to take it, it's nice. Why don't you start that, right? If you don't give them those avenues and then suddenly confront them when they have not made the attempt and they've been trying to, not have the access to that, you confront them on the street and say, you're not learned it. At that point, they're going to get defensive. But the question you could go and ask them is, have you been given an opportunity to learn Kannada? Does your organization provide guidance on how to learn these things? Do they even point you to simple web resources? Do they have structured Kannada speaking classes that they point you to? Do they include do they ask you to go and visit Malleshwaram, for example, and find out more about the local place? If you transport your own city back into another city and make that ghetto, you're not going to benefit in any way personally, right? That is lost on people. The comfortableness that you get, you just need the pub, you just need the office, you just need the money. If that is all your life is in the city, you're not anywhere going to belong. Thank you, Udaya.
Thank you so much.
In the end, what we need to look at with all these acts and other things is to ensure that the cities which are multilingual in nature are able to continue to provide that opportunity to people to speak their languages. But in the end, it should prevent ghettoisation by saying that even if you come with your language, it is in our best interest to learn the language and culture of the place that you have come to the best of our abilities. And how do the corporates try and encourage the mingling of people into the local place? Learn that language, make it easy to learn that language, provide excuses to try that language. However transient your stay might be, is it possible for you to learn the local language and try and understand more? You do that with food. You can easily get into an idli vada dosa once in a while. You might possibly go in and attend a cultural event which is local. You may go and attend a Kadlika Parishe. You may go and attend a Chitra Sante. You may go and attend the Karaga festival. Right? Those opportunities for trying out the local thing probably will help you interest more. And this is what the culture of the place needs to ensure, is that however transient your stay might be in this city, you should have an interest not just about food and culture, but also about the language of the place. Thank you.